Hi, boys and girls. Today we're going to read through our book, The Very First Americans, for the last time and let you think about all the different types of animals, types of people that we talked about, the different lands that they lived in. But first, let's review our vocabulary words. We have native, that means you're from a place. Mesa, a flat-topped mountain in the southwest. Buffalo, big animals of prey that the plains people hunted and used for food. And then disguise, to change your appearance so that people don't know who you are. All right, The Very First Americans by Carla Ashfrose. Long ago, nobody lived in America. There were animals, huge woolly mammoths, big wildcats, bison, but no people at all. Animals may have led the first people here. The animals wandered into America from the frozen north, and the hunters came after them. After hundreds of years, these first Americans were scattered all across the country. They lived in big groups called tribes. There were hundreds of different tribes in America. Each one had its own language, its own way of life, its own name. But when Columbus landed in America in 1492, he thought he was in the Indies, so he called the people he met Indians. The name stuck. All right, the Northwest Coast. Tribes like the Chinook and the Maca and the Salish made their homes near the water along the northwest coast of America. Most of their food came right from the sea. The Maca were very good whale hunters. They carved great canoes from the trunks of huge trees. Some canoes held up to 60 people. The hunters came just as close to the whale as they could. Men speared the whale with their long harpoons. Later, the whole village feasted on whale meat and berries. Fishing for salmon was much easier than hunting whales. Salmon were caught in traps that stretched from one side of a river to the other. Some fishermen believed that the first salmon caught was very special. They prayed over it, cooked it, and gave everyone a taste. Then they put the skeleton back into the river. They believed it would bring more salmon back the next spring. All the tribes of the Northwest were fine woodworkers. The Haida built big wooden houses that faced the sea. Sometimes they carved their front door to look like an animal's mouth. The Haida also carved and painted giant totem poles with birds, animals, and people on them. The totem poles told family stories and legends. The Northwest people often had feasts. Sometimes they lasted several days. At the feast, the host gave away many gifts, blankets, jewelry, even canoes. The host wanted to give away as much as possible. It showed just how important and rich he was. Southwest. The hot, dry desert of the Southwest was where the Hopi, the Navajo, and the Zuni lived. The Hopi built clay houses high on flat-topped mountains called mesas. Hopi means the peaceful ones, but some of the tribes who lived nearby were not so peaceful. They raided Hopi villages and stole food and blankets. That's one reason why the Hopi built their homes in high, hard-to-reach places, to stay safe from their enemies, and if an enemy did reach a Hopi home, he would have a hard time ever getting inside. Instead of front doors, the homes had holes in their roofs with ladders that could be pulled inside quickly. It was not easy to farm in the desert where so little rain fell. Without rain, crops would not grow and the people would starve. So each year, the Hopi prayed for rain. Hopi priests would dance holding snakes in their mouths. Then the snakes were set free to carry Hopi prayers back to special spirits. The zigzagging bodies of the snakes in the sand reminded the Hopi of the lightning that would come with the rain. The plains. Long ago, millions of buffalo roamed the grassy plains of the Midwest. Tribes like the Cheyenne, the Pawnee, and the Sioux hunted buffalo. And since buffalo herds kept moving, these tribes stayed on the move too. The teepee made a good home for the Sioux. It was easy to put up and take down. When the chief signaled it was time to leave, the whole village could be ready to move in just a few minutes. Buffalo hunting was very dangerous. Hunters needed fast, brave horses. Indians honored their horses the same way they honored the best hunters, with eagle feathers. The Comanche were the best horsemen on the plains. By the time a boy was a teenager, he could gallop at full speed, lean over, and swing over another person onto his horse. This was important. It was easy to fall and get hurt during buffalo hunts. Plains people were very thankful for the buffalo. They ate buffalo meat. They turned buffalo skin into clothing, tents, and blankets. Bones and horns were carved into tools, bowls, and cups. Buffalo tails made good fly swatters. Children even played with toys made from the buffalo, bone dice, and balls of rolled up hair. And then the woodlands. The Delaware, the Iroquois, and the Penobscot lived in the eastern woodlands. Trees were all around them, everywhere, and the woodlands people put the trees to good use. Branches became bows or spears or tools for farming. Bark was made into basket bags and canoes. The Iroquois and the Delaware made longhouses out of the trees and bark. They were so big that many families could live inside just one. Woodland people were great hunters. They could look at the tracks of an animal and know which way it was going and even how fast. Hunters moved very quietly over the leafy forest floor. Sometimes they even disguised themselves with deerskins so that they could sneak up on their prey. Most woodlands tribes had leaders called chiefs. When the Pilgrims came to America from England, they met the great chief of the Wampanoag people. His name was Massasoit. At first, the Pilgrims were afraid of this tall man with his painted face and wolfskin cape and his bone necklace, but they soon learned that Massasoit was a good and honest and kind. Massasoit promised to help the Pilgrims get settled in their new land and to live in peace with them, and he did for all of his life. Some woodlands people, like the Seminole, lived further south where it was warm all year long. They lived in houses called chickees with roofs made out of palm leaves. The sides of the chickees were open to let cool breezes in. The Seminole made bright colored clothing and jewelry. The women sometimes wore hundreds of necklaces at the same time. For hundreds of years, Indians were the only Americans. Then about 500 years ago, great ships began to arrive. People from Europe wanted to settle in America. The Indians tried to carry on with their way of life, but it was not easy. As the years passed, the settlers moved onto Indian lands. They did not want the Indians to hunt or plant there anymore. By 1900, the new settlers had claimed most of the country. They forced the native people to move to a special area called reservations. Today, almost 2 million American Indians make their homes in this country. More than a third of them live on reservations. The rest live in cities and towns. Many Indians say they walk in two worlds. They are part of today's America, but at the same time, they keep the ways of their people, the very first Americans. All right, I hope you enjoyed our nonfiction book. We learned a lot of facts about Native Americans, and thanks for listening.